Password Place is a product which allows users to generate passwords for various applications and websites. Password Place requires the user to only remember a single password, their primary password. Password Place uses a deterministic function to create unique passwords for each application based on the name of the application and the user's primary password. Password Place does not store any passwords. Instead, Password Place generates passwords as they are required. Password Place offers the convenience of only having to remember a single password while providing the security of a unique and complex password for every application that the user desires. Password Place eliminates the security concerns involved with storing passwords on a server and removes the risks of losing passwords that are stored locally. The purpose of Password Place is to provide users with an innovative password solution that maximizes both security and convenience. Password Place has two modes, Member Mode and Guest Mode. The user can choose to use Password Place without creating an account, or the user can choose to create an account. If the user chooses to use Password Place without creating an account, they'll be able to get a unique password for any application simply by typing in a password and an application name. As the function for determining the password is deterministic, the password will be the same for the user each time. Users that choose to create an account will have access to more advanced features. A user that signs in will be able to create new application entries and save these to a list. This means that the user does not have to try and remember which application they're using Password Place to generate passwords for. Users will also be able to step forward and step back passwords. This allows users to generate passwords using a third parameter, which is a simple integer value known as step. Step forward allows users to generate a new password for an application in the situation that the application has password expiration after a set time. Step back allows users to go back through the history of their password and recall previous passwords. Password Place targets any user who wants strong password security but wants the convenience of not needing to memorize a unique password for every application they use. This product could appeal to larger organizations or individuals alike. Password Place can be used for generating passwords for entertainment purposes, such as Netflix, or for business purposes, such as generating passwords for products like MyOp. Individuals are primarily concerned with convenience. Password Place is convenient, as it requires users to only remember a single password. As passwords are not stored, users are able to access their password from any device that has an internet connection. Password Place does not even require the user to log in, as Guest Mode is available to users without an account. Organizations are primarily concerned with security and data loss. Password Place protects organizations from having their passwords compromised. It is impossible for a security breach on the user system or Password Place's servers to result in a password being obtained by a third party. This is because Password Place never stores passwords. It is also impossible for an organization to lose the passwords that they use for all of their third-party applications, as again, Password Place does not store passwords. This means that so long as the organization has an internet connection, they will always be able to access their passwords from Password Place. I'd like to show you Password Place. As previously mentioned, Member Mode and Guest Mode are the two modes available to users for Password Place. I'd like to start by showing you Guest Mode. In Guest Mode, the user simply needs to enter an application name and a primary password. Password Place will instantly generate a password for the user based on the application's name and the primary password. Member Mode offers additional features that Guest Mode does not. In Member Mode, the user has a list of applications that they've generated passwords for in the past. The user can choose to add additional applications to the list or remove applications. I'll demonstrate how to remove an application now. If the user selects the McDonald's app application and clicks remove, it's removed from the list. The user can click add to add an additional application to the list. The user simply needs to name the application and enter their primary password. The user is able to simply move between the list to change the application that they're generating their password for. Step value allows the user to update the password for the application in the event that the password has expired. The user simply needs to increment the value in order to generate a new password every time. The step value is associated with the application selected, as you can see. If the user wishes to find out passwords that they had previously used for the application, they simply need to decrement the step value to see any password they've used in the past. Thank you for looking at how to use password place. When I decided that I wanted to develop a password software, I tried to think of ways to differentiate it from existing password software. I thought about how whenever information is stored, there's always going to be a risk that the information can be compromised. That's when I realized that one of the greatest strengths of a password software would be if a password software could avoid storage altogether. This posed a problem, however. How would users be able to save and retrieve passwords if they are not stored? I started to think about seeded values and deterministic functions. I decided that the answer to the problem is a deterministic function. This would be suitable as deterministic functions always return the same result for the same given parameters. I needed to think of the values required for the user to generate a unique password for any application. I decided that the most logical parameters would be a primary password and an application name. At this point, I had the concept of what would later become the guest mode of the software. I didn't want the user to have to maintain a list of applications. I wanted password place to be able to handle that. At first, I was concerned that this meant password place would now have to store values. I soon realized, however, that in the event that a hacker retrieved a list of application names, it wouldn't matter, as they would never be able to receive the user's primary password, as this is not stored. Users now had to have a way of identifying themselves. This is necessary in order to link an application list to a user. This meant that users would now have to log in order to be able to use the application list. That's when I decided that I would offer two modes of use for password place. One mode for those who wish to create an account and one mode for those who do not. Later, I realized that I had not considered password expiration. As some applications have rules regarding password expiration, this meant that if a password was to expire in an application, password place would be useless unless the user had to update the primary password or application name. I didn't want the user to have to do this, so I decided to introduce a third parameter. I decided that the obvious choice for this third parameter would be an integer value that the user can increment whenever they want to change an existing password. By mistake, I found that if the user decrements this value, they are able to see a history of previously used passwords. I now had the concept for password place, but I was yet to implement it. I decided on a layout for password place handling both desktop and handheld applications. In order to achieve the layout I wanted, I used CSS grid template areas. It took a little bit of time for me to understand how to implement the layout the way I wanted. I eventually got the result I wanted with the below code. When it came to creating the view components required to make the password place application, I ended up with the following hierarchy. One of the challenges with this hierarchy is that when the user selects an application, the application name on the main form updates. I needed to find a way to have the option button component update the main form component. I only knew that a parent component can send information to a child component via a prop. After doing some research, I learnt that a child component can update a parent component by having the child component emit a custom event. I could have the option button emit a custom event which would cause the member component to call a function which would update a data value on the member component that is then passed as a property to the main form component. When it came to coding the password generation function, I decided that I would simply take the parameters provided to the function and convert each character to an ASCII value. I would then add the values together and convert them back to characters. I converted characters to ASCII values using the function charcode@, and then converted them back to characters using from charcode. I quickly found that passwords were being generated with values that the standard keyboard does not have. I wanted to avoid these values, so I looked up the ASCII chart and changed my code to keep my values within a desired range of ASCII values. Now that I learned to create a template for an application layout in CSS, make view components communicate throughout the hierarchy, and create a deterministic password generation function, I was able to complete the application that I presented to you today. Thank you for using Password Place.